Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. This is the number 3 that I sharpen the blade on. The sole is a little screwed up. It's not quite flat, it's got a high spot right there. And it needs to be trued up. Also needs to get the rust sanded off of it. And I'm going to sand the sides, clean up the casting itself. I think the paint is still good. I might be able to get by with just cleaning that off with mineral spirits. The frog appears to be good shape. And just in general, bring it back to where it should be. I do have to fix this broken tote, but I'll do that after I've done the other stuff. There's going to be times in here where it has to sit and dry, and I can do the tote at that time. First thing I need to do is I want to make sure that the blade is retracted. Be careful when you're doing this. Make sure the blade is down, because this blade is just razor sharp, and if you run your finger across that sole plate going this direction, no problem. You go the other way, sometimes if that blade's up just a little bit, you'll take some skin off. Not a good idea. Before I flatten the bottom, I want to have the blade in it, clamped up, so that the casting has all the stresses on it that it would see when it's got the blade in it. That way, any wrinkles or bumps caused by the clamping operation go into the base right now, and when I flatten it, those will be accounted for. Now, some of you may remember this thing. This is my flattening board, and I made it specifically for a project challenge. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. You'd just be able to click on it and go right to it. Handy thing to have. There's 4 different grits of sandpaper on this: 80, 100, 120, and 150. By the time I get to 150, it's going to be clean enough that I don't have to go any further. You can take it on up the grits if you want, but having a smoothly polished bottom on your plane actually is kind of counterproductive. It makes it stick a little bit. 150 works just fine for me. Now, I clamp this to my bench. I've just got a series of dog holes going across the bench. Not everybody's bench is set up this way. You'll have to do it the way that works best for you. But this way it holds the sanding plate down, and I can do a good job. Now, this is the 80, this is the 100, and when I flip it over, I'll get to the 120 and the 150. Now, that 80 grit sandpaper goes through the rust pretty quickly. And you can see that the toe is not quite to the same level as this area here. And I've got a hollow spot here. So I'm going to take it on down until I have that shined out all the way up. Now, I may have to leave some of the toe without polishing, because I don't want to take off all the iron on the sole plate. As I'm sanding, I can feel the plane actually riding on top of the dust, and it stops cutting. So it's helpful to clean off the sandpaper every once in a while, just to get that swarf out of there so that your sandpaper keeps cutting. I could disassemble it and dump it over, but I find a brush just as easy. Then it goes back to cutting again. Now, this hollow spot, that's pretty deep. I'm getting most of this out. And the scratches along the mouth are actually going away. So this is coming out fairly good. But I've got a hollow spot right there at the frog. This is why you want to have it clamped up. Now I've got a good flat spot in front of the mouth and behind the mouth. Most of the back is flat. This in here, if I'm polishing that, I'm just doing it to make it look good. When I'm using the plane, the blade slices into the wood and raises a shaving. I want to have this front part of the mouth flat so that the shaving isn't allowed to run ahead of the plane blade and split. This part holds it down so that the shaving is a consistent thickness and doesn't run down into the wood. This part up here, that's only just appearance and vanity that makes me want to have that flat. And this part back here really doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. It just makes sure that the blade stays at the right angle as you're going down the wood. By running along the edge in the corner, I'm just making that sandpaper reach up into that low spot on the plane and polish that up. It's really having no effect on the operation of the plane at all. That's got that pretty well done. Now, I can go further, I can take it down further, but all I'm doing is wearing away the sole of the plane, and it doesn't benefit the action of the plane. So I try not to do that. Now I go over here to the 100 grit, and since the 100 grit only has to take out the scratches left by the 80, doesn't have to work as hard. Whatever scratches were in the bottom of this plane were from all the years that people dropped it on the bench and did all kinds of things to it. So the 80 grit has to take out some pretty deep scratches and make the thing flat on the bottom. The 100 grit only just has to polish out the marks left by the 80. Doesn't take long for that to work at all. Now I want to flip over the plate. And I go to the 120. That goes even faster than the 100. Then the 150. I've still got the low spot right there, and there's still a little bit of a low spot there, but it doesn't affect the action of the plane. I'm not going to do anything with it. With the base done, I'll flip over the sandpaper again. And work on the sides. Now I still have the blade in it. You have to be careful around that blade. Make sure that it's down below the surface. Now if you're making this into a shooting plane, a number 3 doesn't work really well as a shooting plane. It's a little too small. If you are working on a larger plane, you want to make sure that the sides are 90 degrees to the bottom. This one is real close. I can't see any daylight between the square and the side of the plane. So I think I'm pretty close. Daylight shuts out at about 1 thou. one other thing to watch out for while you're doing this. You're sharpening this edge. Now this one has been broken off before. Somebody took a file and went along the edge of it, which is a good thing to do, and we'll do that after we're done doing the sanding. But as you're sanding this, you're sharpening that edge. You're also sharpening this edge. You want to be careful around your fingers. You don't want to cut yourself. Doesn't take long, you got that side pretty well squared up. Then just run the edge along there and break that sharp edge. A nice shine on both sides. It's not as important to have the sides flat as it is the bottom, especially on a smoothing plane. The coffin plane hasn't got a single flat side on it. I mean, it's mostly vertical this way. They're strictly trying to keep the blade in line with the sole. That's all they're doing. Coffin planes work for centuries. Like I said, unless you're making a shooting plane, having the sides 90 degrees to the bottom, that's just vanity again. You want to have it be perfect. Well, I can understand that. Perfection costs. How much are you willing to pay for it? For me, the only thing I'm investing in this one is time and a little sandpaper. Break those sides. Now as I go across the wood, that sharp edge isn't going to dig in and cause me problems. Now I got about a half an hour involved in that whole operation, and I've got the plane to a good working condition. Is it perfect? No. But then, it's a $5 plane. I started out with a plane that cost $2 or less, and now I've got a nice sharp blade in it, and I've got the bottom flattened out. Still got a broken tote though. That knocks a lot of money off the price. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.